I had 3 different options. I could stay a free agent, stream, and just chill for a bit, play solo queue, and relax. I could also join an LCS team in Europe, but there was another team that wanted me. And then I had the option of joining Elements. For me, I knew there was problems in both the teams I could join, but I understood all the Elements problems, and I thought by leaving, it seemed like they had realized a lot of the problems and are actually working on fixing them, which could potentially be one step closer than the other team. So that's the main reason I rejoined, because I think that they are fixing them right now.
Welcome back to the League Championship Series. While Elements and H2k are busy setting up on stage, I wanted to take a little bit of a closer look at this interesting matchup. You just heard from Wicked saying he had options to join teams, and he's elected to join Elements, a team that is really struggling. Coming into the split, the expectations was for them to be the #1 team in Europe. They had Reckless joining them. They won the summer split last year. They dethroned Fnatic. Whereas H2k, on the other hand, they had 0 expectations. They lost their star mid laner, and this was a challenger team that failed to qualify multiple times. As we stand, H2k are 8-0 and on the verge of tying, maybe even breaking the longest standing EU winning record. Now, before we get to the best team in Europe, let's talk about the team that was expected to be Elements and their downfall from the dominant alliance of Summer 2014. As we've already said, the team that dethroned Fnatic for the first time. After 14 games in Summer, they were 12-2. At this point, they're 5-9 and facing the promotion tournament. We've said over and over and over, expectations for the super team. Why have they failed to meet that expectation? Simply put, they have not adapted to the heavy engaged compositions of 2015. Just look at the last 2 games. Go ham and you win. That farm for 40 minutes and wait for your other team to fall over is no longer viable. It shows in the kills and the deaths per minute. The passive gameplay simply no longer works. Now, despite Elements having a very strong laning phase, it's not enough to keep them on top of EU in comparison to all of these new, hungry, aggressive teams. Let's compare them to one of those squads. It is H2k, a squad that's come in from the expansion tournament that really struggled to get in the LCS, but now that they've landed with Ryu, with Prolly, they are fantastic. Least deaths in the league, highest assists, highest team KDA. They may not have the most Dragons or Barons, but it doesn't matter because it's towers and Nexus kills that wins you games. All of this has transpired since Kasing joined the squad. 8-0, undefeated in Europe. He's got a 75% kill participation, the second highest KDA in Europe, right behind God-given himself. And as a team, H2k have got the shortest average game time in Europe at 36 minutes, 29 seconds. That's including all of these wins. When these guys win, they win hard. The final stat, they're actually marginally down at 10 minutes, 17 gold. But the interesting thing is over the next 10 minutes, H2k finds a way to develop a 2,500 gold lead on average. And it just shows that H2k know how to capitalize on a really strong mid game. They surge into a gold lead, it sets them up for a strong late game, and it's that emphasis on teamwork, on towers and objective play that has allowed them to shoot to the top of the tables. Elements, on the other hand, they are battling just for the right to stay in the LCS and to avoid the promotion tournament. The stark contrast between H2k and Elements is scary. Without a doubt, H2k are the strongest team in Europe, and I'm excited to see them beat Fnatic's all-time EU win record if they can take down Elements today. To talk a little bit more about the specifics of this matchup, let's send it back over to Shox and Cyanide at the desk.
Thank you very much, Trevor. You said a lot about it already, so let's take a look at the lineups for these two teams, starting off with Elements, a team that topped the European LCS last summer, but hasn't been able to replicate the success of that during the spring season. Wicked, Shook, Froggen, Reckless, Crepo, and of course their head coach now, or at least in charge of picks and bans as well, is Nif. Their opponents today will be the surprise powerhouse of the spring 2015, H2k, with Odoamne, Lulex, Ryu, Yarnan, Kasing, and their coach, Prolly. I want to touch on a different thing in Elements that's actually happened. They have added both Tabs and Dexter as subs to their squad. How does that change the dynamic in the team, and then especially the pressure on the shoulders of those already playing?
Yeah, of course, that puts a lot more pressure on the players, and I think it depends how you handle the pressure, if you're going to play better or worse. Like, if you perform better under pressure, then of course you will do better because the pressure is enormous. But if you don't take it that well, you might just go on tilt and play even worse.
Would you not argue that going 5-9 in the spring split is enough pressure already?
Yeah, of course it is, but it just stacks up still. And I think it's a good change because it motivates the players to even play more. I bet there are playing like every single waking moment of solo queue and pre-made.
Yeah, and they definitely will need it here, Elements. They need to win consistently against 4 teams that they have lost to already to reach playoffs. How will they do, you think, on 5.5? Does this favor them?
Well, Elements has these 2 passive players. The carry is Froggen and Reckless, and I actually think if they would play double tank, it would give Reckless and Froggen a lot more room to do what they wanted, because obviously the front line is going to take ages to go down. So I think that would be something they could try, but as well, when you are 5'9", it's really scary to try new stuff when you are already losing doing the stuff you know.
Yeah, seeing those numbers kind of hits home a little, even more than being 7th in the standings, 5 and 9, and they're up against H2k. A surprise to a lot of people here that they are this high in the tables in the European LCS. What do you think it is that makes them so strong, or do you think that it's other factors?
If you would have told me at the start of the split that H2k would be one of the best teams in Europe, I would have laughed. But I guess it's H2k doing the laughing right now, because they are just ahead of the curve, mostly in the team play. They do very little mistakes, and overall a very solid team.
Yep, very solid team and a big mountain to climb for Elements if they want to beat them. Things are just about set on stage, so we're going to head over to the caster desk to take us into the action.
Thank you very much, Sharks. I realized I didn't introduce myself at the telestrator. My name is Trevor Quickshot Henry. Moving on to the caster desk to join our very own Martin Deficio Lunga. It was a lovely, lovely feature earlier in the day.
I liked it.
And I said it on Twitter, and I'm going to say it live. You're my favorite color caster, Deficio.
I'm also your only one.
So, we're about to jump into picks and bans here as Elements are taking on H2k. We just had a massive rant discussing H2k, lost on a PTL. Yep. You called H2k the best team in Europe. I just did it on telestrator. I can't shake the feeling.
We completely
I can't
jinxed
shake the feeling that with all the underdog wins at IEM and the underdog win this morning of MYM, I don't know if H2k can close this out.
Well, the thing is, H2k, they love to play tank top lane. Odoam is still undefeated on Gnar and Maokai, so that should fit really well with the new patch here. He can still play Maokai, he can still play the big tanks. Lulix, wonder what he's going to play, because he's been a bit of everything. He's been supportive, he's been the carry, but the real deal here for me is Elements. Because when Wicked looked the best all Season 5 long was at IEM San Jose. It's been a while ago. He played Maokai and he had some very good games against Cloud9. If he can get back into this tanky role, where he's not a carry in any way, he's again just a big, fat front line, I think that's gonna favor Elements a lot and buy time for Rex and Froggen, the passive carries, as people like to call them, enough time to do well.
Well, we'll find out what strategy works out and if Wicked on a beefy frontliner is the key. Siva, Annie, Rumble taken off the table. Rumble, not a champion I'd associate with H2k. On the other side, Blitzcrank, heavily targeted Crepo, was the champion who played in his first showing here in 2015.
So is it going to be Maokai or Rek'Sai here for Elements? You can see how H2k are banning 2 junglers, saying if you first pick Maokai for Wicked, we take the Rek'Sai. If you don't, we obviously get the Maokai. It seems it's going to be Maokai here for Elements. Again, I think he's the best top laner overall right now. I think he's just so strong in the comp meta.
And I want to just once again reiterate something Cyanide was saying on the analyst desk, something to Fisher you were saying this week as well. If Rek'Sai is locked in for H2k and Shook decides to go a tanky jungler, you may have that super beefy mega tank on the front line for Elements. There's a few seconds left for H2k to lock in their priority picks though.
The problem is still, when you play a tanky jungler into Rek'Sai, you are a lot weaker in the early game, so you give up basically the entire pressure of the laning phase. That's where Rek'Sai can make the plays. That's where Rek'Sai with their, let's say, the mid laner, they can gank the lane, they can invade into the enemy jungle, they can get these deep wards down. So it's basically all about the early game then for the Rek'Sai to dominate, because that's where she's the strongest, compared to, let's say, if Shug is playing a Zac. He won't be able to duel him early on. He cannot duel against the Rek'Sai. And that's where Elements is giving up a lot of pressure. And it's been a problem before, because Elements as a team in the early game has not looked very good. They've always fallen behind, or at least almost always falls behind, and they have to claw their way back in.
Yeah, we'll see what Elements decide to do this time around. H2k, they've locked in one potential ingredient of the Juggernaut. Let's rather call Protect the AD carry, depending on what they lock in. But you have to wonder, have Elements been playing with Lulu? Froggen's played it in the past. Is somebody going to learn to play it? The options are there for Elements.
Yeah, they have now. I would honestly have gone for Lulu here instead if you want to run that composition, and you could have potentially Lulu mid-range. Okay, I guess it is a very low damage comp, but this is a bit new for Crepo in some way, because he's normally been very focused on being the engage, or one of the engages here for Elements, but instead, this is what we just talked about, how this current patch allows you to play like double tank, Nuno Maokai in this case. It allows you to have passive carries who just sits back in a team fight and kills the enemy frontline first, and then you win the fight doing that. Reckless is set up for a perfect hyper carry situation. If he goes like Jinx here, the late game of Elements is going to be absolutely insane. You got protection, you got Blood Boil, you got Maokai in the front, but H2k can do the same here. They have a hyper carry already locked in, one who can deal with tanks as long as there's protection for it. So I love the Janna pickup at least from Elements to take that away from Kasing. Lulu is still an option though. Morgana is going to be an option as well if they want to have some peel.
Well, 2 seconds left on the clock. That Protect the AD carry comp has taken a sharp detour with those disengage lock-ins. A Thresh and Gnar for H2k. Not the Lulu we were expecting, but it could still come in if Ryu wants it mid lane on the assumption Elements don't go Jinx Lulu now and round out their Mega.
They can't
one
do
damage source?
Yeah, it's like late game, that's all about the AD carry. You can do it. You can also go for the likes of, let's say, maybe a Karthus if you want some extra late game damage and an extra threat who also acts as pretty good peel because you're obviously running into the enemy team, you have the wall and everything. And that also means if there's a lane swap going on, suddenly the Karthus, his ulti, is going to make a lot of work onto some squishy members of H2k and just in general a fantastic late game pickup. But that would obviously give again the pressure to Ryu and H2k in the mid lane, which is what we talked about before with the Rek'Sai.
Well, let's be fair, H2k have all the pressure with their team composition thus far, and Elements have got all of the scaling to work with. It was the Karthus, Deficio, so you do have all of that peel, all of that zoning, all of that damage from Elfrogan on the Karthus.
But you also have a horrible early game.
It's a champion they've got a lot of history with, and the last time Elements picked a team comp that was scaling against SK Gaming,
yes,
they gave up early kills, they gave up the advantage, and SK spanked them. Completely.
Now, it's not like Karthus is terrible in the lane. He can honestly do really well in a lot of matchups. It's just you farm. You don't really go for any kills there. And when against the Rek'Sai, you have to respect that early pressure coming in from Lulix. So what Shook is looking to do is basically be a ward bot and just come in here, ward two sides of the mid lane. Make sure, okay, Froggen can always farm, you can always push the lane in. And then simply try and track this Rek'Sai. You don't have to go for any ganks if you're playing the Nuno, because you don't want to risk a counter gank from Lulix. And then if you look at H2k's composition, yeah, sure, you have a hyper carry for late game, but he's not going to be able to do enough against a Karthus, a Jinx, a Maokai. Like, everything from Elements here is screaming late game. H2k is much more mid-game focused. You got a Trinity Force AD carry, step one. You have, obviously, LeBlanc, who is going to do well, unless you ask Froggen, who thinks Karthus is obviously a very good matchup into LeBlanc. It's a counter to everything if you ask Froggen, but the pressure is for Rio here. He has the kill pressure in the lane. Both Froggen and Faker said though that Karthus beats LeBlanc in lane, so we're going to have to see if he can pull it off.
1 year ago, almost exactly, Karthus versus LeBlanc was the debate, and both Froggen and Faker, as you already highlighted, mentioned that Karthus, and the way that Froggen actually did it, spammed all of his mana super early on.
One and level 2.
Got lane control with those lay wastes and then keeps the opponent on the back foot. We'll see if the same rules apply a year and about 40 patches later.
Yeah, we see for H2k here, they do have a good team fight, but it's nowhere near the level of Elements, so it's going to be a lot more about creating picks with the LeBlanc. We'll have the Gnar sit one-on-oneing against that Maokai, because that's where Gnar can still do well. But in terms of pure team fighting, Elements are going to be so much stronger in the late game. So we have to see if H2k here, like they normally do, can push that early lead, get the dragons, and obviously start pushing down these towers really fast, and then simply close out the game before Elements get too late.
I'm going to go right back to the Telestrator segment. Our stats guys behind the scenes were helping work with us, and one of the big things that we've noticed trends for Elements is, as a team, the farm to late game strategy is not as successful. You're about to see the team comms flash over. You guys at home, hit us up on Twitter at LOL Esports, hashtag LWin or hashtag H2KWin. Deficio, I'm not 100% sure that Elements should have given or should have picked such a scaling team comp against... Is that H2K I'm hearing?
Sounds like...
Well, the audience, a little bit split. There's some Elements and some H2K.
Bit of everything. Few Deficio chants as well.
Hey, your feature's over, buddy. Don't let it get to your head. Don't let it get to your head.
So, again for H2K here. Really looking to create some picks in the early game. You have Rek'Sai, the strongest early jungler if you ignore the Nidalee, which was banned away. You got the decent matchup for Gnar. Will be able to play around with Wicked quite a lot. And then, of course, Ryu, who can make some plays on LeBlanc. And I really look forward to see how Froggen plays the lane. I don't think Karthus really has any completely horrible matchups. I think he can farm against nearly everything. The question is just how far back do you have to sit in your lane to get that farm, and how much pressure do you have to give the enemy mid laner?
Well, Reckless with an early trinket ward placement.
1-0 Ryu.
The Cromp. We'll give the advantage to Ryu already for a little bit of damage. It seems to be standard lanes for the time being. Well, as I say that, looks like Reckless is finishing up his recall. Let's see where they decide to match up. The makings of a 2v2. And let's see whether or not Kasing can start off the magic. The game that started H2k's winning spree was Kasing playing Thresh and hooking Nif's Janna. It was the game that started the spiral, and we have a similar matchup today to Fischio, and it looks like we're going to have that 2v2 as well. Krepo definitely has to respect that early play from H2k.
And we see the standard ward here again at level 1, where you place the ward near the Gromp, so you can see if H2k is starting Gromp. So now, see, Elements have the information, so they know, okay, they're going to have Gromp, they're going to have a small XP advantage that way, but you can see how Elements are doing exactly the same, so they're going to be even here. Question is now, who can get back to lane fastest, and how many minions will they lose? It looks like, for now, Elements were a bit unlucky, lost 2 melee minions, so they won't be hitting level 2 before the next wave arrives, while H2k will be hitting level 2 once they kill the last ranged minion. If you only lose 1 melee minions, you just need to clear the entire wave, you hit level 2 for them.
Let's see if...
As long as they got the last hit at least.
Does he want to go aggressive? One more minion to go.
Reckless got all the XP. You see there, level 2 now from H2k. They cleared out the first wave. Elements have to wait for the next one. They also gave full XP over to Reckless, trying to push him towards that level 2. So they now have to sit and wait. They're not in a bad situation because they didn't really push the lane. If you had pushed the lane right here from Elements, you've been caught in the middle of the lane. Enemy gets level 2, and that's where you have to flash away from a Thresh going for the hook. So instead now, all these minions coming in for Reckless, and not a bad situation for Elements.
And we did see, while all that was going on, Shook actually invading onto H2k's jungle with that Nunu pick. It looks like Lulex is going to try to reciprocate the steal, and it just ends up being a blue buff trade between the two respective lanes.
Yeah, Shook already have the blue buff, which you mentioned. Despite the bottom lane pushing in, he could just sneak in and grab it. Froggen obviously in the farm here. He should know that Lulex is on the blue buff. So he has to obviously stay a little bit towards the bottom side of the map where Shook is, in case a gank should happen. And as you mentioned, Froggen with the, I'm going to spam my mana early, I'm going to push in the wave, and then I'm going to force you to use mana on last hitting on the tower as a LeBlanc. It's pretty annoying when you're playing LeBlanc here. You really want that level 2 early pressure from LeBlanc. And Froggen has managed to push in the wave.
Small early advantage for Froggen already.
This is great for him. This is 10 CS already. This is very, very good for Froggen, pushing it in.
Yeah. 2 Karthus picks today in the EU LCS. Xiao from North America had some phenomenal performances. He hit 300 CS in 24 minutes. We'll see if Froggen can farm his way up. 59% in favor of Elements. Still the majority, but far and away not the dominant one.
Oh, look at what Sugar's been doing. He's staying in the jungle of Lulex. He smited the wolves to get that small little ghost flying around the face of whatever it is to spot Lulex again. So he's making sure they have information on the Rek'Sai, meaning the lanes can be safe and just focus on farming at this point. Even all across the board except for this, except for mid and top, I guess, which is in favor of each team.
Reckless gets hooked, he gets flayed. Janen's not in range to auto-attack until a moment ago. Manton gets put down, and relatively even trade as far as I can see. Now Lulex coming in, Froggen with a very early flash. And all of that presence, or pressure in lane rather, has been somewhat countered. That's going to make life more difficult if Froggen wants to keep pushing that wave so aggressively.
Yeah, very much so. And we see H2k, knowing they can make plays in the early game, already have a pink ward placed around the dragon. That was the route Lulex took to gank this mid lane here. You don't really have to be too afraid of a Nunu counter gank. Nunu Karthus is not going to be the most scary 2v2 lane for the likes of Rek'Sai LeBlanc. So that's why they can play around it, try and put some pressure on Froggen. Wicked, as we mentioned with this Gnar here, has been pushed down. All he wants to do is just try and farm and avoid his tower taking too much damage. That's literally all Wicked is going to do.
Well, there's one thing I do want to highlight with Wicked playing the Maokai. This is a little bit of a harsh statement. Well, we'll get to that in a second, actually. Shook, moving down into this bottom lane, does have that
Lantern.
Ice Blast and early Lantern. It really comes from it. But what we learned from IEM is if you have a fairly weak top lane or somebody who's not the most mechanically sound, put them on Maokai.
Yeah.
And it negates a lot of those weaknesses.
The point-and-click champion, basically. Now Lulex is going for Wicked.
Another early flash. Lulex follows up with a flash. There goes Odo1. They're down to 80 hit points, and Wicked is going to get away. Odo1 there, Lulex burning 2 flashes for 1 and not getting them killed.
2 flashes will be able to push the wave down. Wicked really wants to wait for this teleport to be ready before he recalls, so he doesn't have to lose the entire wave. H2k, they're staying. They want to force him away. That's all they're doing here. Now they're going to get some damage on the tower. Wicked won't be able to TP back in time, but Shook, in classic Nuno style, has been able to solo the dragon, seeing as Lulex was on the top side.
So well played by Elements to get themselves an early dragon kill. And yes, H2k invested an additional summoner spell in that wave top, but they did deny a bunch of gold, a bunch of experience, and Odo1 picking up the Hex Drinker against the multiple AP damage threats from Elements. I actually quite like that pickup. It makes a lot of sense in this particular game.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're also looking to bully your lane. That's where the Hex Drinker comes in very handy. Reckless having to flash away.
Would have been the second hook to Fisher.
Would have been. Very true. But yeah, I like Hex Drinker. You want to bully your lane against the Karthus as well. In this case, and then he's just going to go tank after anyway. Rio though keeps trading with Froggen, and Froggen just want to farm.
Very well played there by Ryu.
Look at the farm difference though, 60 CS. Like this again, what Froggen talks about when he mentioned this matchup. If he pushes early on, uses all his mana, LeBlanc is not the best at last hitting on the tower. And simply by doing that, it created such a big lead for Froggen. Flash has been blown now. We're not going to see the tier start, you're going to see Rod of Ages instead for him. So he needs a bit more earlier Rod of Ages, a bit more combat stats in his situation against LeBlanc.
And you want to give some props to Elements here. We're approaching 8 minutes on the clock. They're going even or ahead in lanes. And despite pressure from Lulex's Rek'Sai top and middle, you know, blowing Froggen's flash, blowing Wicked's flash, they're keeping themselves relevant. But one thing to keep track of, Shook is a little down on CS. Spent some time in H2k's jungle, but falling a little bit behind.
Nuno is one of those junglers, though, who doesn't really need to upgrade his item very fast. He can go for an early sidestone, and he's still extremely useful, because your main objective is getting down vision for your team. Cinderhulk, of course, is going to make him tank it later, but we very often see Nuno players just delay upgrading their jungle item. Go for that sidestone early, go for a potential locket. In this case, I do expect him to go potentially sidestone Cinderhulk, and then he can look more towards other items for himself.
We'll see if that works out. Kasing with those Moby boots is hanging around, does have flash available, throws the lantern out. He connects with the death sentence, but here comes Krepo. Krepo knocks him away with a monsoon. Kasing was out of lane for long enough that Krepo saves the day.
Yeah, again, they read it really well here. Saw the roam coming from Kasing and started moving as well. Had to blow a flash. But again, you keep Froggen alive. He's still farming in that mid lane. And flash will be ready for him very soon. Lulex is picking up a blue buff. Unless Shook won't be able to get in there in time. But this is again what happens when you don't have the pressure in let's say, the mid lane. And you're against a jungler like Rek'Sai, who's so strong early game. You often have to give up certain camps in your jungle, or at least allow them to get in there. Blue buff, however, I feel like it could have been defended with Krepo being nearby from Elements. I don't think they expected Lulex to be there, honestly.
Well, smart play then by Lulex. Going to take a small advantage, but H2k, they are keeping up the pressure in lane. Pushing top, pushing bottom, and then I psych out by Kasing.
Yeah, Kasing with the mind games against Reckless, trying to force him away from all this farm here on the tower, but Krepo has returned. Back to farming, basically. His bottom tower down to 50%. That's good for H2k. They are a team who likes to play around lane pressure, a bit like SK Gaming does, where you take down an early tower in the lane and then you rotate your AD carry. So let's say the top lane, and you push down the second tower, and that's how you create a massive gold advantage. And then you get into team fights in the mid game when you already have an item advantage.
Well, we did see Reckless sidestepping that death sentence. As we flick back to mid lane, 79 CS to 67. The fact that Froggen didn't have that flash and was ganked by the roaming Kasing has bought some time for Ryu to farm up. Of course, that was when Krepo jumped in for the flash monsoon to save the day. But a Karthus going even in lane, holding his own, is setting Elements up relatively well. But we are still waiting for those item spikes here for Odoamne and for Hyanan before H2k goes super aggressive.
And also even better for Elements, they got that early dragon, because Shook went into solo it once he saw Lulex in the top lane. The reason I mention it is because the game we just had before here with the Unicorns, where they had a strong mid game, they got the early dragons. They got to 5 dragons at 30 minutes. Elements are stopping that by getting the first one, and buys even more time for him to basically sit back and farm. This gank is going to be nearly impossible to pull off, especially because Lulix has now shown himself. Oh, well, except because he's now in the bottom lane. So if Shook goes in, it can go horribly wrong for Elements.
Remember, there is a Requiem to follow this up. There's a teleport coming down from Wicked. Elements have initiated. The Requiem gets first blood. Lulix was in retreat in what was a 4.5 versus 3. Elements get the first kill. They're gonna get the first tower, and there's a minute until the next dragon.
I thought it was going to be Shook running in first here, then pulled back by the Thresh, and suddenly he would have been caught up. But instead, it was H2k who started the gang. Flash engage from Kasing. He ends up dying. Tower Elements. TP was used for Modoamne in the top side, so he's going to try and push down the tower here, because Wicked joined the bottom lane. Should have probably cancelled that teleport, but just wanted to be really safe. It will cost him a lot of damage up here, so only one small mistake. But H2k will try and capitalize on it.
It's Officio. This is looking like a cost to curse is real situation. H2k
Not
were
yet.
8-0 coming into the game. And if they had won today, they would have matched Fnatic's 9-0 record from 2013. Set themselves up to break it tomorrow. Intel Extreme Masters had all of the underdogs winning. MYM picked up a win earlier. And Elements are starting off strong.
Let's remember that, let's just look at Shook first.
I think Shook might die here. Ryu seems to be jumping on Ignite, will pick up the kill. Flash away to safety though.
As we saw in your Illustrator segment here, H2k at 10 minutes tend to be behind just a little bit. But at 20 minutes, that's where suddenly they're 2,000 or 3,000 gold ahead of the enemy team, because again, they play around taking down these early towers, and you don't really do that pre-10 minutes. So I'm still feeling comfortable in terms of H2k and the way they want to play this mid game.
Well, look at the way they've grouped up in middle. Ryu's found Frog and he's jumped onto him, decides to jump away. Kasing connects with a death sentence, follows up. Ryu jumps in, and it's a last hit from Hyanin. May set them up for another tower. Kasing drawing attention from Wicked, gets dropped by the Super Mega Death Rocket. Lulix solos the dragon, and we'll keep track on their hit points in the middle lane. H2k, 600 gold lead, first dragon on the board.
First dragon, yeah, we see the play here. It's all about early towers. They took Hyanin, they moved him to the mid lane, pushed it in. H2k already took the top lane because Wicked failed that teleport in the bottom lane, where Modoamne got the tower from it. They're looking for one more. No Trinity Force yet for Hyanin, but he has the Sheen. That's all you need to walk in, press your W, click once on that tower, and you do a lot of damage to it, and you just slowly grind it down though. But Reckless getting an early kill is very important for Elements. Can they hold this tower?
Doesn't. Ooh, well, minion wave
Getting
is
close,
dying.
they got the shield.
Eye of the Storm's gonna help out, of course. Crepo throwing down the E. Just gonna take a quick look at itemization. Wicked working towards the Righteous Glory. Looks to be a Cinder Hulk next here for Shook. And of course, Modoamne currently stacking that HP. Kasing and Ryu got to be careful now.
I don't think Wicked should go instant Righteous Glory. Just sit on that Catalyst. Get some MR, get some armor now first. Because you're going to have these mid-game fights where it's not going to be you engaging, it's going to be H2k trying to engage on you, trying to pick you off. So that Righteous Glory here, I think you should just honestly get a few tank items. Then you can complete it later, because you're not the one, again, as I said, looking to create the fights.
Well, we'll find out what Wicked decides to do. Currently finds himself down 30 CS in what is a tough laning matchup. And obviously, it was an early gank from Lulix, even in the mid lane. Advantage to Reckless as far as AD carries are concerned, and I actually think I prefer Jinx as a late game AD carry in comparison to Kog'Maw. I think more power, and I like the mobility from Get Excited.
That's true, that's a very good point. I really preferred when you have a Nunu buffing it and a Janna. So yeah, Jinx is gonna do a whole lot more in this game if again Elements get to that point. Now they're gonna get the first move up over to Froggen. Mid tower gone down, bot lane tower is already down to about 40% as well. We can see how H2k are moving around these lanes here, getting that goal lead, or trying to get it at least. Trinity Force is now completed for Hyanin. Froggen has the Rod of Ages, so again, no tier. Need that earlier Rod of Ages. Bit of a safer lane for him.
See what Froggen can continue to do. Has had that Rod stacking for a little while. We've touched on some of the items. Lulix already completed that Warrior enchantment. But you noticed as soon as we hit 12, 13 minutes, H2k, you know, starting a fight bottom, it didn't go their way. Starting a fight middle, it did go their way. Got their hands on a dragon. It really feels like H2k found, you know, the timing that they wanted to play aggressive, and they make use of it.
You saw them again make the proactive move. they moved Jan into mid lane before Reckless was there, that was why they could go on to Frog and kill him. As soon as that Sheen completed, they started pushing down towers. Now bottom lane is gonna die. Already been poked down a lot. Rio's built up a wave. No reaction yet from Elements. They put Reckless top lane to get a tower here, but they have to be careful because it's 4 guys in the bottom lane from H2k.
And look at the vision. H2k have got complete control over Element's bottom half of the map. They are going to start
Should be able to defend.
looking to get some hits. Hyanan playing very, very safe. Scared of that point and click route from Wicked and actually backs off. So it ends up being a tower trade, which again, Elements is going to be relatively happy with. They're only 1,000 gold down and continue to stay even. Righteous Glory was in fact completed by Wicked, so if he wants to go aggressive, he can.
Shouldn't really be looking to do it though.
I think they want Froggen. And it looks like they do. Ryu doesn't have flash available. Froggen's being chased down. Look at all of the support from H2k.
A lot of
damage in reply onto Ryu. Those lay wastes were massive. Heal looks like it's going to keep Ryu alive just barely. Wicked forcing away. Does look for a target and unable to find one. Odo1, there's Mega Gnar. And we did see the Super Mega Death Rocket fly way wide. H2k invested a lot and may lose pressure and control in the middle lane.
That was such a good play by Froggen here, kiting around, poking Ryu down, now allowing his team and the Jinx to get close to a tower. When you have Nunu and Janet to buff a Jinx, you destroy towers. So that's what Elements can do to really gain some global gold here. If H2k makes another mistake, that mid tower ends up dying. And all these wards we saw placed beforehand, this buys time for Elements to go back in here and take control of their own jungle, because these wards are going to expire from H2k. Weren't really able to play around them. Credit to Froggen, keeping it very cool in that mid lane.
Yeah, and the rest of Elements, they did respond in time. Look at the minimap again. H2k grouping up. H2k smell blood, and they want it. We do see Ryu, Lulix, Odo1, they're moving in. Lulix flashed for that, got the Chilling Smite down. The zap comes up from Reckless. He's going to be the sacrificial lamb as H2k pick up another kill. But it's just... I'm going to say this. Tell me if you agree or disagree. It almost feels desperate. H2k keep throwing absolutely everything at Elements, and it's not garnering as much success as H2k would want.
Oh, tough one. I tend to disagree a little bit, because they got the 3 outer turrets already down from H2k, and the play right here is simply saying, okay, we can see how you have a lot of guys who's gone back to base. None of your lanes are pushing. So if you show up in one of the lanes, we're just going to run down and kill you. And that's exactly what they did, because Reckless showed up on his own, while Crepper was there. But mid lane and top lane, nobody was in top lane, there's just minions. Mid lane had already been basically pushed out because Elements had recalled. So that was just a very easy kill to pick up and now set up for this dragon here. Rio, he's in the bush, he's going to try and assassinate Crepper.
Well, Crepper's going down here, does get dropped by Ryu. Some assist kill from Kasing with 15 seconds until Dragon. That is a mistake that may cost them another objective. H2k putting some more wards and setting themselves up for a strong Dragon play.
You can see what Elements tried to do here. Walk in, set up a few wards before so they wouldn't get assassinated by LeBlanc waiting in a bush. However, the sneaky Rio hiding there and basically doing what you should do on an assassin in the mid game. Hide in the bushes around objectives where you know the enemy team is going to walk in and just destroy them if they face check you.
Well, we are 19 minutes, 20 on the clock. Ryu finds Shook to get some damage down as the second dragon falls. We'll keep track of the fight as it progresses. Remember that mid lane tower was hit pretty low the last time these two teams engaged. And Elements have now set them sights on a tower. Look at Hyanan. He's in the river and he's going to be late to this fight.
Rio is spotted now, so Elements will get a bit of damage on the tower, but we might see a fight here. Lulix has no flash to engage. Kasing going in.
Well,
He
we
got
see
Reckless.
they caught Reckless. Can he get taken out? Ryu is trying to find a target from the side. Reckless is still alive on the back line as Ryu forced to go back to a clone. Kasing is the first one to drop as the tower takes out Froggen, but the Requiem should get more. That's a triple kill for the king of mids in Europe. Elements go 1 for 3, take down the tower, and H2k, who traditionally have a gold lead at 20 minutes, are behind Elements.
Now you can say your point here, Trevor, because Elements, that was such a good fight for them. Reckless got caught out at first, but he flashed away. The ulti from Shook was beautiful. They kept him alive, and Froggen was just going crazy. Karthus, that is his champion, because he's not afraid of diving in and dying on it.
Deficio, they got so many kills, as well as 2, maybe 3 towers. H2k were able to defend.
Lulick's coming from the side.
That. That's a flash that was interrupted from the Howling Gale. Crepo, have you saved your team? Monsoon knocks back H2k momentarily, and Lulex is unable to find more. The disengage after the monster control play. Elements are in the lead in the mid game.
Such a turnaround. I can't wait to see that fight again. With Kasing flashing in. H2k going straight to Baron. Most of Elements are still around. Froggen can move from the side lane. They have Scrying up on Reckless. He can check this one. There we go. They see the Baron. They have to back away now from H2k.
Well, what can Elements do to follow this one up, if anything? They do manage to at least avert the Baron. And Deficio, I said it 10 minutes ago. I'm gonna bring it up again.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
Let's do replay first.
Right, so let's see here. Reckless is gonna be the target. There's no flash for Lulex. There's no Mega Knife for Odoamne, so the only way to engage is by flash hooking from Kasing. That's what he's gonna do, and he gets Reckless. That's perfect. The problem is, there's no follow-up. Lulex, no flash, so he can just only go in with the tunnel, nothing else. Odoamne, there's no Mega Knife. Ulti from Shuki zones 3 guys, and Ryu jumps in. Crepo is there, Wicked is there to help Reckless, and now look at Froggen. He's just saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go straight for your back line. I have so much AoE damage already, and then a perfect ulti comes in. Simply not enough summoners or Mekanar to dive onto Reckless there and use that hook from Kasing.
And you go back a few minutes. Ryu blew everything just to kill Crepo in the river. You go a few minutes before that, Lulex flashed to kill Reckless in the bottom lane. And every single time that happens, it's just putting you a little further behind for those fights. So H2k, maybe for the first time in 4 weeks, have to play from behind against a team that is terrifying.
Oh yeah.
To play in the mid to late game, and especially from behind.
When you press tab and you see the enemy Karthus 22 minutes in, has 200 farm, almost completed his 3rd item, which is going to be a death cap. Then you start becoming a little bit scared because that's going to hurt. I mean, if he ultis now, that's like 60% of Ryu's HP. It's just gone. Well, that's it.
One thing I do want to say, Froggen, please. Xiao Xiao, probably with the highest CS in the 2015 season. Froggen, you're about 90 short, buddy. I'm going to make that up in a minute. I'm not forgiving him for that. I'm not forgiving him for that.
But he did do well in his lane matchup.
I did.
Him and Fager agreed on it. Yes, okay, H2k could make some play around it, but the farm went over to Froggen in this case. So Wicked for him. We just saw that last team fight as well. Why I dislike the Righteous Lore as the first item, simply because Wicked is not there to engage, he's there to peel for his carries. And that's why he doesn't offer him a whole lot. But because they won the last fight, he's now been able to go towards the second tank items, and it might not matter for him at all.
Well, we'll find out. Elements playing very well around their team composition. Dragon spawning in a minute 40. And the last time it was secured by H2k after punishing Elements for trying to get vision control.
But last time there was a mid tower, stopping the Elements from pushing the waves all the way into the tier 2 and then walk into the Dragon and place these wards safely before Ryu can get in a position to assassinate them. So now Elements can get the proper vision control. You don't have to see Crepo walk in and get killed in one of the worst situations as a support where you don't really feel like you can do anything. You did your job, you place down a few wards, and then you just get assassinated from behind by an assassin. Because they do assassinate people, Trevor. That's how it works.
Really?
That's how it works.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But glad to have the explanation. Do you want to just go back to that? I had this unnerving feeling, despite all the praise on H2k, that this was the game that was going to break their streak. And it's looking like Elements have the recipe for success. But I do want to remind everybody, Elements had a 10k gold advantage over Giants not too long ago. And some poor positioning in the late game cost him that matchup. So
And a Baron.
And Baron. I think if H2k had a different AD carry, I'd be more inclined to feel it. But Kog'Maw is also equally as effective at taking down tanks on the condition H2k can keep him alive and keep him attacking with that bio-arcane.
Just no buffs for him to make up for the damage the Jinx can do with her help. But this is a bit of a misplay from Elements right here. You have teleport on your Maokai. He should have, Wicked should have gone back way earlier, met the wave Ryu was pushing down and just stopped him from taking that tower. That was a free tower to H2k with a mid laner with no teleport. Like, that shouldn't have happened from Elements. So there's still a few things for them, but they are in the gold lead. They have set up wards around the Dragon. There's no bush for Ryu to sit in and snipe them this time around. So Elements can suddenly fight where you know where the engage is coming from. If there's no Mega Knife from Odoamne, I don't see H2k really going for it because they need to get to Reckless. Otherwise, it's a problem.
Well, look very quickly at the item differences. Death Cap completed for Frog, and he's got nearly 500 AP. We do see the Thorn Mail for Odawamne. Some armor and MR in Wicked's hands. Dragon secured, uncontested, as H2k do not opt to blindly face check a Karthus Nunu Absolute Zero Defile combination. So 2 for 2 on the Dragon front. Blade of the Rune King just picked up for Hyun, and I think that's a very important item, but still needs to get armor penetration if he wants to get through the very, very beefy front line of Elements. Shook, nearly 3k HP. Wicked, 2,500 HP. It's a lot to burn through for the AD carry on H2k.
Especially also when you're going to get an ice blast in your face, reducing your attack speed by like 30%. So, not gonna be the most fun game here for Yanen. He's really gonna be the target, but I mean, for Elements in these fights, it's gonna again just be so much about kiting around. You see the Mega now, okay, you back away. You pop the ulti from Krepo, you just run away. Once Mega now is gone, you're not afraid of H2k any longer getting to your backline. Only Ryu can really jump there. And that's where you stay with the exhaust on Krepo, where you have Wicked to like lock him down. And all you want to do is just have your front line buy time for the Karthus, for the Jinx, to make the big plays. So as long as they have the vision down and they can see Odoamne, H2k doesn't have a lot of ways of engaging. We're slowly but surely getting towards that late game. I think we can safely say it for Froggen already. On 3 items, he's already in late game.
I think that's fair to say, Deficio. Elements have got a massive minion wave up top. They're going to try
They
push
gotta
it
ward
into
the
the
flank
inner
here, though.
towns.
Have to ward the flank so you can see how Odoamne is engaging. Megana is going to be popped very soon for him. That's why he's sitting on the side. He just wants to get a last bit of rage. And then he has flash ready as well, so look for Reckless. You can see how he's positioning himself as far away as possible from Odoamne, simply to have enough time to also flash away once his Mega Gnar arrives.
Mega Gnar is up, tower relatively untouched, lost a couple hundred hit points if that. H2k trying to make use of the giant monster that is Odawamne. He's got a lot of tanky stats against Reckless, but not the most against Froggen. Can H2k defend the tower? Got to reiterate, at this point in time, H2k are 10 and 4 on the split versus Elements, who are 5 and 9. Elements, one win behind the Unicorns of Love, thanks to Unicorns picking up that victory a moment ago, and actually still out of playoff contention. Elements need these wins, and they need their opponents to lose to even stand a chance of making the top 6 for the playoffs, Deficio. There's so much on the line here for Elements.
Obviously, you're also playing to avoid relegation, honestly, because number 7, that is a safe spot. You don't go to playoffs, you don't go to relegation, you just prepare for the next split.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't even be the worst for Elements with all the problems they've had so far in terms of the roster. They've made so many changes, picked up Dexter and Taps now as subs, so there's so many things that still need to work out. Having them just sit in the safe spot and just prepare for next split, again, it might not be the worst for them.
Yeah, I'm really glad you bring that up, actually. With, you know, Dexter and Tabs and Nif on the substitute roster, I think it's fair to say that the first European team that's gone as far as to say, you are replaceable, we have official substitutes, and if you don't step up now, more changes will come. For Elements, it seems to be working, but it is still only a marginal lead. But it's Elements that are dictating the tempo of the game. We're about to hit 30 minutes, 600 gold separate, even on towers, even on dragons. But it's Elements that are saying, you dance at our beats.
And you're in a game where your composition is going to be so much stronger in the late game. So this is very good for them being even. As long as they can keep getting to objectives before they spawn, place enough wards to make sure Rio doesn't have a bush where he can jump in on the likes of Reckless and just kill him, then you can keep fighting here. They also need to be careful they don't just run into the slow from Jan here, because there's a lot of damage. H2k might look to fight. No Mega Gnar though, once again for Odoamne. He's just standing here hitting on Wicked.
Stacking it slowly. Death Sentence is just short of the giant oak tree. Wicked is in full retreat. Does manage to get away.
I guess he's hitting Wicked, not hitting on him. But that's fine as well.
If you didn't draw attention, I wonder how many people caught it.
Enough.
Enough. The one thing I do want to say is that vision is going to be so important. If Kasing can find a hook onto Reckless, or even Froggen in an inopportune position, remove him from a fight, at the end of the day, it is still a double damage threat from Elements, so they need everybody alive, everybody working together. H2k defending this middle lane. We're back to 5-on-5. but Meganon's popped.
H2k now should walk down to that dragon. They don't have any pink wards, however, but they need to get at least a few wards behind the dragon pit and then put Rio in a good position to get one of these picks we've talked about so much. They're doing it now. You can see how Kasing is moving in, warding in the jungle around it, and simply allow yourself to fight for this dragon. Because the last one, they had to give it up. They lost control of the dragon. They couldn't face check elements. They couldn't get the right flank, and therefore they couldn't win the fight. So they wisely decided to back away. Now they have all the deep wards they need. Elements, what they're trying to do instead is draw attention to Baron and say, if you go to that dragon, we're going to start that Baron and we will take it extremely fast. So you have to stay in this mid lane now. Wicked, however, needs to follow the waves. He needs to follow Ryu a lot better. You cannot allow Ryu to push on all these waves here, get so much damage on the towers when you have to teleport on a Maokai.
Yeah, Wicked was pushing out that top lane, but Ryu wisely pushed down the bottom lane. And we do see H2k, they seem to have backed away. Dragon spawning shortly. Ryu, again, moving to that bottom lane, Deficio. It looks like if Elements commit to an objective, Ryu's going to play the partial split push, but it's going to give Elements position on the dragon. Ryu's going to be late to this one. Still no home guards. He is recalling, and it looks like H2k have given this one up.
Again, as soon as elements get to go into that dragon, H2k has to give it up completely. Unless they assassinate them on the way, you have to give it up. This Baron has been started now. Elements, they're moving. It's still on 8k HP here. Elements will be able to stop it.
And the problem is, if H2k stick around, Requiem is going to put so much damage down, it will guarantee a follow-up team fight victory. So H2k back away. Now it is H2k on the defensive. Elements pouring down the middle lane. They've got the numbers to back it up. They did a lot of damage on this turret earlier.
They have no charges on the side stones, however, so they can't really ward the flanks yet. That's an opening for Rio if he wants to go in. You can see him there on your minimap, dancing around that base gate for himself. But because H2k had to recall as well, couldn't set up anything, and now Elements can make sure, first of all, you don't all want to recall at once because you don't want to risk H2k rushing that Baron. So you can see them pinging it. Some needs to stay, but you also need to get your side stones recharged here from Element's side, because it's going to be so much about warding your flanks all the time. Finding that LeBlanc here, finding that Gnar, not allowing any engages. You see again how Elements, they're staying around the Baron, at least with some members, making sure H2k knows, okay, we cannot just start it, because there's still going to be enough to stop us.
Well, Elements have cracked open the H2k base. There's 5.5. Doesn't give us much gold or XP anymore. Just an aside, anyone keeping up with the patch notes.
True.
Game changing right there.
Better than the base gates.
Better than the base gates. But for Elements, with an extra tower to their name, an extra dragon to their name, and the fact that, you know, Froggen was already late game, but Reckless is getting there. Almost got that Bloodthirster completed. Been sitting on that QSS for a little while. Crepo with the locket. You've got Frozen Heart on Wicked's Maokai. Warmogs on Shook.
Wicked needs to be careful. Ryu's just jumped over the dragon pit. They're going for him.
Well, let's see what happens. The chain's going to root him down. Ryu does jump over to Wicked. Vengeful Maelstrom is going to keep him alive a little while
Nice
longer.
flash.
Ryu and Odoam, they're trying to chase him down. Look at the rest of Elements. They're moving up to the Baron with Karthus and Jinx. This will get melted. H2k moving their way up. Odoam does have teleport available, and it looks like Ryu has got himself in position. Kasing eats away waste. Froggen, they want to chase. That's a defensive flash from H2k. We do see the Prey Seeker going up. Box has already been used. Teleport coming down. Follows up from the Requiem. The Mega Death Rocket gets one. Kasing is down. H2k now with a full defensive play. No mana on Hyanin. Meganod's close for Odoamne, but I think Wicked will be in place. He is with the rest of the team at the moment. H2k on full defensive. Froggen is going low. Odoamne is about to go Mega Gnar, but I don't think he'll have his ulti up. Exhaust comes out, and Hyanin is trying to dodge the lay waste. Baron goes to Elements. Reckless is chasing Hyanin. Look for the zap. Defensive flash. Hyanin dodges. The end of the day, it's a 1-for-2, a Baron and a defense.
Make it a 3-for-1.
Elements are not done. Odoamne is going down, and Deficio. Elements look to unsettle the 8-game winning streak from H2k.
That was such an important play in the bottom lane from Wicked. They're staying alive, allowing him to recall and teleport into the fight after Elements had started that Baron with 4 members there and simply force H2k into such a bad situation. Rio, he's still looking for Reckless. Won't get him this time.
Chains don't collect this time round, and with the burst damage, it actually looks like they defended their inhibitors. I think that's a very important stall tactic, but it is a very, very small victory for H2k.
can also see for Wicked here, normally you would love home guards, but he's gone for distortion. Seems to have teleport more often as he knows he's the guy who's defending these sides. So look here, Wicked survived. That is so good because now he can teleport in, and that allows Elements to basically say, okay, we can fight here with Wicked coming. Meganar also just ran out for Odoamne, so that's gone. He's not going to do anything. Beautiful setup, ulti from Froggen into Reckless here with the big rocket. Picking up the first one, back to Baron. No mana for Yana, and Ryu is extremely low. That means you can pick this one up. Just such a good play around the two guys showing bottom lane. Wicked staying alive, and then knowing your composition, how strong it is when there's no proper engage from H2K's side. This Gnar has done absolutely nothing in terms of team fights. It's always been in mini Gnar because Elements play so wisely around it. It's not just Odoamne here, it's Elements saying we know when to fight and when not to.
Well, what a fantastic game this has been. Elements keeping the dream alive. 5 and 9. If they win this, it's 6 and 9. They've got Baron buff up. Odoamne about to go Mega Gnar. Look at Ryu. He's being zoned by Wicked. The warding that you touched on, Deficio, not in place, but Wicked is playing a human ward. Elements still playing. They're playing with fire at the moment.
Had the ward there. You can see both flanks from Elements. Now they got these side stones. Perfectly warded up, so Ryu doesn't really have any openings where he won't be spotted. And that's where you can be ready to position around him and potentially even knock him away. Look at the side lanes as well. Massive one in the bottom lane. Once Elements take this inhibitor here, they can go straight to that bottom lane, catch the wave, because you know you can move into the jungle. You can see all of H2K's members. Mega Gnar being popped. Elements backs away. Now they can go back in here. As soon as it's gone from Odoamne, take inhibitor, go bottom lane.
Well, inhibitor still standing, about a third of the hit points taken off. Ryu still dancing in the jungle. Elements, if they decide to rotate bottom, they can use those charges to get even more jungle wards. Reckless, 2, 3, 4, 5 auto attacks on the inhibitor. Continues to look for it. It's down. With the Get Excited going to move bottom, Elements may not even need the minions to take the tower, but it will allow them to siege up the next inhibitor turret. More vision, more control for Elements. If they're going to take an uncontested tower.
Then you get Dragon, and then you go back to base. You have earned a lot of gold already. And then you look towards the last outer turret in the top lane with already super minions pushing in the mid lane. And the good thing about pushing a side lane is there's only one flank you got a ward, so it makes it even harder for H2K. They want to try and stop the dragon. Oh, they're gonna face check.
So scary.
Oh,
Distance connects, but what can H2K do? Wicked's gone in. There's 5 members on top of each other. The Mega Gnar throws everyone backwards. Odoamne's wreaking havoc. Froggen's down, but here comes Requiem. Let's see if Yanin can survive. I don't know if he can. He's been shut down by Froggen. Reckless is running rampant. Ryu gets Reckless. Odoamne's down in reply. Crepo, Shook, and Wicked looking to clean house as Kasing is in full retreat. It is a 2-for-4 trade, and the death trap from Elements is elementary at taking down H2K.
It's the same setup as always here. You keep Reckless alive, and they're fighting in a choke point against a Karthus and Nuno and Maokai. That's nearly impossible. But this time, H2K did have Mega Gnar, so they did manage to get at least a few kills in the fight. We'll still lose the dragon. Let's see it. So yeah, they're going in. Kasing ping it, he lands the hook. Odoamne gets a good Mega Gnar coming up for him now. Ryu side led to distortion out of the fight, so he's not there to assassinate anyone in the back line. Good ulti from Odoamne, pushing them back. But look, Nuno ulti, Karthus, everything, all this AoE in a choke point makes it nearly impossible to do anything. And that's why Elements, despite H2K having probably the best fight for a few minutes, will still end up winning it.
Great positioning from Froggen. Just gets himself right in the middle of everybody. And Kiana doing the best he can, but there's just simply not enough HP. Simply not enough survivability. Elements come out on top. They get their 4th dragon. They're in absolute control of this game, and it's just a matter of closure now.
Before they go top lane, they should send someone down to push out this bottom lane. It's coming double cannons from H2K. Get that slow pushing again like you did before, because you can see once these waves are in your control, you can very easily rotate between the lanes, pick up a free tower. So once this bottom lane has been pushed back, and Elements feel like they can move away from their own base, because now it's H2K trying to set up a few traps. There's a good pink ward to spot them, however. You can also see some of them in the mid lane. They're simply trying to push Elements away from their own base because they know what's going to happen. If Elements get to group around the top tower, there's nothing H2K can do to engage. So now they're trying to make the play themselves, and it's going to give them a tower. Or
oh, just not enough. Yana decides to back away as Elements got themselves grouped up. Everybody looking to try to reset this map, but for H2K, Baron's up in a minute. Can they defend that and deal with supers at the same time? There's waves pushing in their favor bottom.
Wicked
And a
has teleport.
teleport available for Odo1 as well.
Yeah, but Wicked has teleport as well, so he can walk down. Ryu is sitting here because he's expecting someone from Elements to go bottom lane through the river here to clear that wave on the bottom lane side. So he's hiding here, hoping it's going to be the likes of Froggen, but why would you send your Karthus at this point when you have TP on your Maokai? Instead, they ping him out. The wave is still pushing in. We'll give a tower to H2k if it happens, but obviously you don't want to give up this Baron control either. Now Wicked is coming down, so Player takes the safe route. They spot him, but he has teleport ready, so he doesn't really care.
Meganar popped for Odo1 there as well. 40 minutes on the clock, 12 kills to 8. 62k to 58k. Elements, 2 towers in the advantage, and after all of the chaos and the excitement in the mid-game, it's Elements that have been in control the entire time. You look down the itemization, just tank, tank, tank from Wicked and Shook. More AP coming out of Froggen. Abyssal and the death cap, 658 hourglass completed, and he's still got a Void Staff to go. If he wants to wrap that one up, it is a terrifying position to be in if you are H2k to look down a 42-minute Karthus and Jinx.
And really looking at Lulix here on this Rex side. He tried to make some plays early on, but he's also now been completely handicapped by his own items in some way because he's building so much for the team. You got Locket, you got Sidestone. Like, this is not a strong Rex side. It's not a big tank at all. It's all about the teamwork. So unless you manage to snowball with that early on, it doesn't really do anything in these fights. So he's extremely weak at this point. And then Nuno, I mean, you sit on Frozen Heart and you sit on a Warmox and you already have built-in, you know, zone control and removing attack speed of the enemy AD carry. Shook is so much better now than Rek'Sai, or sorry, than Lulix in these fights.
Well, something you do have to highlight, it is patch 5.5. The theory that everybody was wondering, is the tank jungler meta setting in? H2k were the best mid-game team in Europe, and they have been unseated by the shakiest team in Europe at the moment. Elements, the tank, the double front line, play safe until 40 minutes. We said it didn't work, ironically, up until this point, and now it is.
Now it works, yeah. I mean, that's what we talked about before the game even started, how this patch should favor Elements, because if you do have passive carries, you build a double tank setup and you just have super long team fights where you allow your carries to just hit the nearest target every single time. That's what they're doing. And also, if you put Froggen on Karthus, all he has to do is literally walk into the enemy team, and if they focus him, you still lose the fight because it's the Jinx you gotta kill. So this setup is just so good late game. We know Froggen is fantastic at controlling the lane, and that's also why he's had such a massive impact on his Karthus.
Good damage coming out of Ryu onto Shook. At least one of those frontline threats has been partially mitigated, but it's going to do nothing but buy time. Inhibitor has respawned in the base for H2k. A minute and a half till Dragon is up. Baron respawned relatively soon. Top wave pushing against the Elements base. So somebody's going to have to deal with that, but Wicked still sitting on his TP.
Wicked. It's fine.
Should be able to jump on H2k if they want to. We'll see what happens here as H2k move into the Baron pit. Not brave enough to start that one. Ryu's doing the best he can to find somebody.
Yeah, but as soon as Ryu shows himself, Elements move forward, because now they know there's no threat of him killing them from the side. So if H2k wants to set up anything here, and now you get in that awful situation where you have to choose between, do we take a Baron and potentially give them 5th Dragon? Like, what do you do? Where do we invest our wards to prevent them from doing anything? You got to choose one of them, and you got to choose your LeBlanc to say, okay, you're going to go to Dragon, because we are hoping they're going to move to that Dragon, and you get that one pick. But if, as you see Elements do here, they're not really looking to go straight for any of the objectives. They're moving, place a few wards, prevent the assassination potential. And as long as H2k can't trade objectives, it's a win for Elements.
Well, H2k a little bit split up. Ryu's way on the flank. You see that Void who's coming out. Wicked has chased Ryu. Ryu's forced to dash away. Look at the background. Meganar is charging up for Odo1. Wicked gets rooted away from his team. Needs to be with the rest of Elements. You can see Ryu doing the best that he can to keep everybody at bay. Meganar pops. Odo1 eats a lay waste. Position on Dragon, sort of in favor of H2k, but far too risky to start it. at this point in time. Look at the minions on the bottom half of the map. Elements, can they time the team fight to work with a massive minion wave that's built up?
Well, as long as Elements again can see where H2k are, they can move forward. Ryu is trying to come in behind. Look at the minimap here. He's on the other side of the dragon. Disengage.
Well, let's see. Ryu is instantly exhausted. He's pulled Wicked all the way over.
Got him.
Super
That's
Mega
it.
Death
That's
Rocket
it.
gets one. Without the damage from Ryu, this should be a convincing win on the team fight for Elements. 5v4. They've turned away. They've pulled middle, and they get bottom to push as well.
Such a good setup again from Elements. They slowly move forward. They need all the information. You saw Ryu jump in, you saw Wicked say, point and click on you, I'm gonna follow you, rocket from Reckless, that's Inhibitor.
Well, Inhibitor secured. Elements, they've set their sights on more. This minion's still pushing in with them. They're onto the Nexus Toad. Requiem is being channeled now from Froggen.
Oh, he's
That's
got the
going to
recall.
delay the recalls of Hyonin and Kasing. Nexus Toad is down. The second one's about to fall. Elements are unseating H2k, dropping their 8-game winning streak and keeping their playoff hopes alive. Massive, massive smiles. Maybe sighs of relief a little bit on the Elements side.
For sure. Again, we talked about how last week they looked better. They just couldn't close out the games against Copenhagen Wolves and the Unicorns, and they lost two very important ones in the race of playoffs. But now, early game was set up simply for them. Well, now, 5 all the fans here, but by them surviving that early game and having such a good late game comp and playing around Vision so well, they fully deserve this win.
Excellently played. Absolutely excellently played. H2k did everything they could, and it resulted in some outer towers and the odd kill here or there, but it never gave H2k control of the game. It never gave H2k... Actually, hold on a sec. At 19 minutes, H2k were 2,000 gold up. One bad team fight in the middle lane, and then losing 2 towers.
That was it.
At 20 minutes, they were 500 gold down.
Yes, that is the key one. Because that one team fight, if you guys remember, no flash for Lulix, so he couldn't do anything on Rek'Sai. No Mega Narfo to Ame, so he couldn't do anything. It was Kasing flashing in, starting the fight, but there was no follow-up. So Reckless was standing in the back line, Froggen went into the middle of the team, they got to clean it up, and that was really the big point for Elements, where you have now prevented falling behind when the enemy team was stronger in the mid-game, and you will get to late game now with your composition. And this game really also showed why Gnar has fallen out of favor for so many top laners after the nerfs, after how it's now, there's more cooldown before you can get Mega Gnar again and so on, because they played Elements so well around the Mega Gnar every single time, making it nearly impossible for Odoamne to do anything.
Yeah, and I think you have to give props to actually both teams in this matchup, because despite the fact that H2k came away with the loss, they did everything that they have been doing. They played the mid game, they tried to push towers. Elements were just better. They responded in a smarter way. They punished Elements' lack of cooldowns better than I think Elements has done all split long. Every time Mega Gnar was around, as you said, they kited back. When flashes and ignites weren't available, they looked for fights. And from fairly early on, Elements, they gained control, they grabbed the reins, and they were making H2k respond. And H2k, for the first time in 4 weeks,
We jinxed it, man.
couldn't do it. Could not do it.
I think they're going to look at this pick and ban phase, though, and say that was not what we were looking for here. Because there's nothing to protect your hyper carry in the late game in any way, and you can get a lot better in terms of like fast pushing AD carries here for Hyonin. At the same time as well, like LeBlanc and Gnar, or well, we can say in this case Gnar and Rek'Sai, that's tough to start fights if you are not in complete control of the map. So I don't think they're going to run that combo again. And maybe they even got baited a little bit into Rek'Sai by being open and Elements, there was the trade, it was Maokai or Rek'Sai for Elements. Whoever they didn't pick would be picked up by H2k. And they simply couldn't really play around it.
So for anybody that's keeping score at home, Cinder Hulk junglers are currently 3 for 3. Tank coming up ahead of damage.
And
if
no
you
Nidalee.
can play around it. If you can play around it. This was a game that was an excellent demonstration of that. Shuko Nunu, despite falling a little bit behind, despite not having the same ganking
That's what
presence,
Nuno does.
ended up coming out ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Nuno is a fantastic pick on this patch here. So get ready for the long late game Nuno games here where the enemy or where your hyper carry gets blood balled and you just win fights from it. Because he does so well in terms of as long as you have proper vision control down, you can prevent, you know, the enemy jungler from making these ganks here, let's say a Rek'Sai, and you get to these team fights where as long as your AD carry is doing well, he will win it for you. And also, just credit to Froggen on this Karthus pick. We know it's his style.
Yeah.
And he played it so well. He died once in the laning phase, and then everything else was basically him just dancing around them, farming. Won the early game against the LeBlanc as well, like him and Faker said they would.
The thing that frustrates me so much, if there were like a lemon meringue pie here, somebody would throw it and hit me in the face. Because if you replay the Telestray segment from the beginning of the game, we touched on how the reason Elements were 5 and 9 is because farming for 40 minutes was the reason that they were losing. And now they farmed to 46 minutes and end up winning. Yes, it's a different patch. Yes, tank junglers
And they played better earlier.
are a reason.
That's a big difference.
It is just very interesting to see that in terms of play style, Elements played much more intelligently. They pushed the towers, like that 19-minute team fight into multiple towers, into like 50% of the inhibitor turret. That's an element we've not seen before.
It's almost like 2 extra weeks of practice have done a lot here with the new players, and it looked good. It looked great, sorry.
That's why you're such a good caster.
Thank you.
Right, for an expert eye on Element's record-stopping win, let's head back to Shocks and Cyanide at the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. As we're joined here by Froggen and Krepo after that win, which safely puts Elements out of relegation territory for now, that is. Guys, start by telling me what happened in the week that you guys were on break, essentially. Is it a shift in training mentally that you show up totally different here?
Yes, Froggen. Did it shift?
Nah, I mean, I think it was just good because we could have a couple of more days off, which I think we all needed. And then we just practiced a lot of new stuff and tried to work on comps that we're all comfortable with, and I think it seemed to work pretty well.
We asked a question here beforehand if 5.5 might favor you guys. It seems that it does. What's your opinion on it and the picks you guys could play because of it?
I'm not sure if we can go as far as, hey, Elements is the king of 5.5, you know, so you only play one game. Thing is, we just had more time to prepare on this patch. A lot of teams took like small breaks or went to Katowice even. And we just stayed at home, had a couple days off, and just started practicing as much as we can. So we have a good feel for the meta, but it's still gambling. In scrims, you have no idea who's gonna play what, and you don't know if they're cheesing you, whether it's actually meta, or whether it's just like oddball curveball. If you scrim UOL, for example, you don't know if it's a Vijichachi champion or if it's actually a meta top laner. So a lot of question marks, but I'm just happy we came in with a strategy. We knew our draft all the way. We had compositions prepared, and it worked to an extent.
Yeah.
Froggen, do you think it gives you and Reckless particularly more room to do whatever you guys do to win the game when you have like a double tank front line to absorb all the damage and then you can just do whatever you want?
I think it does give more room for us to deal damage, but at the same time, if we play with double tank, we have less damage than if we had like a carry top lane or something. I think it just depends a lot, and it depends what you're running it against too. In this game, for example, it's very easy just to pick Jinx, and then we just protect Jinx and try to kill everyone because they have to run through basically 3 tanky champions, because Karch is kind of tanky too once he gets Hourglass and he has 3k health. So it just allows us to deal a lot of damage while we have a lot of CC on our team.
Yeah, I guess the Nunu playing all the game on the bot side was part of the plan as well to get Jinx ahead and rolling, so...
Yeah, it was.
All right, so you talked about Jinx and protecting the Jinx. Let's get a replay up on the screen of a moment that Jinx needed protection because she did get hooked under the tower, but you guys turn it around.
What's happening in Froggen?
So basically, just Jinx getting flash hooked by Kissing, and then we're like, oh, not getting our AD carry, and then we try to kill everyone. And Ryu jumps in, gets instantly Maokai snared, and basically leaves her to die once I use my ultimate. That's why I'm going in to basically suicide, to get as many people as possible because I'm low mana, so I need the death to have mana enough for my ultimate, and then I just end up getting an easy triple kill because they overcommit on the Jinx.
Actually, this is the first time I saw the top end of the fight because I was focused. Basically, me and Wicked were constantly looking at LeBlanc, not allowing her to flank because that was the one counter they could do. That's why the game was very slow at points, because we just had to 100% be sure that she couldn't flank us. At one point, she found me, you know, when I was face checking full wards, and then it did show like how vulnerable we are to the LeBlanc. And having Karthus just go in, suicide, and then whenever LeBlanc W's out of the fight, she's always 50% HP. Having Karthus ulti come in then is really good for you, especially if it doesn't have Zhonya's yet. And I think that fight really snowballed the game.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys just kept going from there. The Karthus pick, I do want to get back to it as it was so essential here as well. And you have talked about it a lot in the past versus LeBlanc, and it seems like you didn't pick for the lane, but somehow you did end up, he picked for the lane, but you ended up doing super well in lane as well as mid-game. So what happened?
Basically, Karthus just on the blank 1-on-1, and then they tried to camp me, and then I just went deep and I had my ultimate to help out. So, like at one point, I was up 23 CS, and then they started camping me. But I think
camper dogs.
Like going into the picks and bans, I'm like, okay, if I pick Karthus here, they're 100% gonna pick LeBlanc, and that's ended up happening because they would have too much AD if they pick Zed, which is like just makes it the draft very easy and predictable for us.
It's actually really good that Frogger drew aggro mid lane a lot, because we screwed up bottom the way we did our Krugs. I'm not going to say what happened, but something went wrong. I guess land jitters. So we came to the lane slower than they. And actually I think Jinx Janna can really outpush Thresh Kog'Maw from the first wave if you have the creep even. But we were on 1 CS down, so we got pushed in early. So I was actually getting really scared. But then I looked at Frog and 20 CS up, and he's drawing direct side aggro. Shook was giving us the special camp treatment bottom to get us back in the game, and then we had these good fights, so it was a good feeling for once.
Yeah. Also, you guys stopped H2k's winning streak. Was that, to help Cyanide out so the Fnatic winning streak would be preserved? Is that some collegial nod or?
Yes, exactly. It wasn't at all to avoid possible relegation.
Yeah, not
just for
at
you,
all.
Cyanide.
Thanks.
Yeah. And actually, Cyanide had something to say to Crepo as well for the thing.
Yeah, like I was really looking forward to seeing you on the desk because you're my idol in this analyzing thing, but I was afraid you guys wouldn't win a game, so I wouldn't get my chance, but I'm happy you guys made it.
Thank you. Just got to work on your analysis. You should have known that we would come back.
Well, all jokes aside, because as you said, this is very important for you guys to get away from relegation. The casters were actually discussing that maybe it would be good for you guys if you focus on the safe spot, maybe the 7th spot, knowing that you don't go to playoffs, but you also don't go out and kind of take it as a work in progress. But I'd love to know your vision on it.
From my point of view, we should just take one match at a time because we haven't really won a lot lately. So it's more important that we actually win some matches than other teams start winning and losing and thinking so much about, oh, what if all this stuff happens? Rather think about what can we do to actually just win the games, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, it's actually pretty daunting. When I first joined, it was, okay, we're 6th tied, okay, 7th tied. Oh, that's fine. If we win so many matches, we're still 6th place. And now it's like, oh, it's getting less likely. So right now, you just, as Froggen says, you want to focus on yourself. You want to make sure that you have good mechanism, the stuff that you can do every game, that everything runs smoothly, and then you still want to start winning games. Because it doesn't matter if you slowly crawl your back into 6th place, only to get smashed in playoffs. You just want to play well every game. And we just really hope we can make this weekend go 2-0. And the first step is made, so hopefully tomorrow the next step. Yeah, one game at a time. Congratulations, guys. Very nice to have you here. And great win. In just a few minutes, we'll be back with our final match of the day between Giants and SK Gaming. Giants, they need every win they can get to stay out of the reach of MYM. But can they pick one up versus the #1 SK? Stay tuned and find out.
What is the sign saying? I cannot read it.
I mean, Liv, go over everything again.
He's turning away.
Liv.
The other one says, "Welcome, League of Elements."
Welcome to the League of Elements.
Oh God.
Where everybody else is trash.
Still alive on the back line as Ryu forced to go back to a clone. Kasing is the first one to drop as the tower takes out Froggen. But the Requiem should get more. Froggen is going low. Odoamne is about to go Mega now, but I don't think he'll have his ulti up. Exhaust comes out and Hyanan is trying to dodge the lay waste. What can H2k do? Wicked's gone in. There's 5 members on top of each other. The Mega Gnar throws everyone backwards. Odoamne is wreaking havoc.
Oh, he's
That's going to delay the recalls of Hyanan and Kasing. Nexus turret is down. The second one's about to fall. Elements are unseating H2k, dropping their 8-game winning streak and keeping their playoff hopes alive.